let me introduce the very important session for the day. In fact, preschool session and school session was being laid, as a foundation, so that we can have a very, very interesting ending with the higher education panel discussion. To introduce this panel discussion, let me have the privilege to announce the name. We have Dr. Ruma Ganeshji. She is the co-founder of F5 World, NES Chairperson of Global Talent Track, and she's also the moderator of this session. I welcome Dr. Ruma Ganeshji for having you over here. Thank you so much for accepting our invitation and being so modest to moderate this session as well. Sanjay Padode, sir, the president of Vijaybhoomi University, chairman, IFIM institution. So happy to interact and see you again, Sanjay, sir. Mr. Vineet Gupta, founder and trustee, Ashoka University and Plaksha University. We welcome you, Vineet, sir, in today's forum over here. Thank you so much for coming over here. Dr. Shrihari Prakash Onward is the president of Sri Padampat Singhania University. Welcome, Dr. Shrihari, sir. Dr. Shalini Gupta, she's the Vice-Chancellor of Desh Bhagat University. Welcome, Shalini, madam. And Suraj Sapra is the Chief Strategic Officer of No Paper Farms. Welcome, Suraj, in this panel. So without wasting much time, may I, ma'am, please hand over the virtual mic to you. Over to you, Dr. Uma Ganesh. Ma'am, can you please unmute yourself?
Yeah, okay. There you go.
Yeah.
Good evening, everybody. It's a pleasure to be part of this conclave, and I understand this is the closing session. So at the outset, apologies for to all of the audience for some delay in getting started with this session. And I would like to ask the organizers how much time we have so that we can make sure that although we are starting,
there is no session after this. You can take your full time. As long the people are getting entertained and they are happy to have this deliberation, you may please continue.
No, but I think in the interest of all the panelists and also their audience and the audience, I'm sure they would have all made their own plans. So I would think that we are now starting at 5:30. Maybe
45 minutes. We
can we go on till about 6:15? Would that work for everybody?
Absolutely. 45 minutes was I was telling.
All right. Okay, good. So at the outset, happy to have such impressive set of panelists. And to set the context for today's discussion, I've had the opportunity to listen to some of the previous sessions. And when I reflected upon it, what I felt was, yes, we've all been very excited about digital technology. We've all been experiencing digital technology in the context of learning delivery, particularly after post-pandemic. There have been personal experiences, professional experiences, educational institutions have come to the fore. And one of the oft-cited examples of digital use is from education institutions. Therefore, I would like to see, what is it that we really think when we say we have gone digital? In the last few months, especially after post-pandemic, whenever I've had the opportunity to discuss with some of the academic institutions, the very fact that we are able to now use Zoom platform and connect with large number of students, for some of them, that is digital. For some others, the very fact that we are able to use WhatsApp to connect with students and send across notes through these media or use mobile phones, that is digital. However, when we talk about digital transformation, and that is a question which, as leaders of academic institutions who are part of this panel, I would like to elevate the discussion to a higher level. When we talk about digital transformation in the context of any institution, any organization, any business, we are really talking about fundamentally rethinking how the entity functions. So when we talk about fundamentally rethinking how we function, we are talking about the experience of students. Have we been able to fundamentally redefine and deliver superior experience to them? Is one of the questions we have to ask ourselves. Secondly, we heard in bits and pieces about competition, we need to do digital marketing, all of that. But how do you see digital transformation actually enabling the institutions that you're all part of to rethink your competition, rather redefine your position vis-a-vis who you think are competitors. Are these public universities? Are these private universities? Are these global institutions? These are questions to be asked. Thirdly, all of us, whether we are running private institutions or public institutions, we have something called expenditure, we have something called revenue, and at the end of the day, nobody wants to bleed. So is this digital transformation enabling academic institutions to run the institutions in a manner that we don't bleed? In fact, are we able to improve our bottom lines? Are we able to create more surpluses, or are we depleting surpluses? And finally, I would also like to ask ourselves this question: through this digital transformation process, have we been able to bring in agility? Have we been able to rethink the way we run our institutions to bring in innovation, to accommodate innovative ideas from outside as well as from the inside? And what are we doing to do all of this? And of course, to facilitate all of this, we require a very, very different culture, the way we run our institution, the people, whether it's faculty, students, vice-chancellor, all of us, how do we interact with them? And what is the new culture that we are trying to create? So these are some of the questions that come to my mind when I look at post-pandemic transformation of institutions who are adopting digital technologies. How far have we come in terms of addressing some of these questions is the first aspect that I would like our panelists to address. So may I request to begin with Dr. Shrihari to address some of these questions in the context of your institution and trace the journey of your own institution in the digital transformation journey. Over to you, Dr. Shrihari.
Thank you, ma'am. You did ask a lot of questions. Suddenly, I remember I am no longer a very good student who would remember all the questions. So I will try to do the best, but I expect you will prompt me if I have missed out on any of the questions. Sure. Let's understand the digital transformation. I think digital transformation was on the cards for everybody, and all institutions were at their own pace trying to transform, for the simple reason that we are going to be handling millennials and new millennials, and now I don't know, I think this is generation alpha or beta or whatever, and this generation is already in their virtual world, and if we want to educate them, we need to reach out into that virtual world and educate them. So that was never a question. Pandemic just accelerated it. And our preparations, were very similar to most others in the neighborhood. We did have a LMS, which is, the most basic thing in a digital transformation. Our faculty members were in the process of preparing video lectures and this thing and trying out various methods. The nation as a whole was into MOOCs, so learning in a non-face-to-face fashion was exposed to both students, faculty, and the universities. From that point of view, I think what we were thrown into was not really that difficult a situation, except we did hurry up and log down to the easiest platforms that were available, so that our first attempt was to recreate the classroom experience on one of these platforms, I think, so that the business can go on as usual and students are continuing to have lectures. We also got onto a bandwagon of proctored examination systems. I'm sure there are multiple solutions available, and everybody must have latched onto one of these systems and tried to conduct exams and continue the process of teacher-student interaction. But our experience has been twofold. The faculty feel there is nothing that can replace classroom environment, and a lot of faculty still have that feeling. But at the same time, the students also are realizing that to have the same kind of intensive class, a class attending, live class attending session that they would have in a classroom, is going to be very painful, because you are trying to focus into a very small square, even if it's a laptop. In many cases, students have to focus onto a mobile phone, a smartphone, to listen to teachers' lectures. I think that is a big difference which we must recognize in the whole process. And what we are thinking now is, this is nothing again new. The classrooms were already being branded as a stage on stage, kind of places where learning effectiveness was anyway a little lower than expected. Different people put different numbers. I'm not getting into that. And we had to move to active learning experiences for students. We are now in the process of trying to see if technology can help us move into that space of active learning, collaborative learning, wherein we will not get into recreating a classroom experience for the student, but we will not lose the touch and feel effect of being of our teacher and the student. In fact, enhance it using technology. I think that
That's
is the path we have traversed in the last few months, and we are now looking at converting some of the classes which the teacher would still sit in front of his laptop for an hour, and the student would in fact sit in front of his laptop for hours together. I think this is not going to work out, because in the classroom, the teacher's presence, his body language, and everything is will help student focus on the teacher, or come back to a focus on the teacher. Whereas at home, he is distracted by what's happening in the kitchen, the smells, the noises, and the rest of the household cannot be brought to a standstill, unlike in a school going child's case, where the mother or the father or grandparents are sitting with the child. So we are now into bringing in more and more technology, fully recognizing that when students do come back, we are not going back to dumping them into a classroom from 9 to 5, and then going back to the old normal,
Thank you
because
very
the
much,
time has
Dr.
come
Shrihari.
to
That is
recognize
really
that.
very nicely conveyed,
Yeah.
that you're really
So I
thinking about.
think it answers some of your questions. If I missed out any, please.
Sure, I'll come back to you shortly. You have really talked about how do we deliver good experience for the students. Let me now move on to Mr. Vineet Gupta and request you to talk about 2 or 3 other dimensions of digital transformation, particularly in the context of innovation or competition, or even in terms of how have you seen this transformation journey in terms of overall the expense and the expenditure and the income generating perspective. Over to you, Mr. Gupta.
Thank you, Dr. Ganesh. Well, let me say that firstly, as far as the digital transformation during COVID is concerned, I'm sure all institutions had ERPs, LMS, etc. for a while. But what this accelerated is really the mindset. Faculty, at least in our institution, over the last 5-6 years, I don't think many faculty were open to the idea of teaching online or even teaching on a live platform. I think COVID forced everyone to learn that way. So faculty had to really get on speed, right? And equally students, we've all run institutions. Students would prefer coming to the classroom. Rather, the notion that a class is going to be delivered live over Zoom or some other platform was not accepted. So I think that mindset change has happened, that both faculty and students are now willing to learn online. I think that's a big shift. In terms of the challenges, so while this has been a big shift, I think the challenges are, students are experiencing Zoom fatigue. Students are feeling sitting in front of a screen from 9 to 5 is perhaps not the best way to learn. Faculty are okay actually adapting to it better. This is what we feel. But students are very eager to come back to campus, especially because we run a fully residential campus, and the joy of living together, being together, learning with each other, participating in extracurricular sports, that element of campus life has gone away. So I think while the pandemic has accelerated digital transformation, in some sense, it's also exposed the limitation of the digital technologies, right? It's also sort of shown. I think when the pandemic hit, there was great excitement for the first 2-3 months. Look, that this is going to really transform, disrupt totally. I think that sort of exuberance has settled down, and there is a realization that look, physical classrooms cannot be replaced or may not be replaced in the foreseeable future. So I think there have been challenges related to that too. Now, what is the future? And I do want to make it concise. I know there are many other speakers waiting. I do feel in the future, live or online learning is here to stay. Live learning till now was really pre-recorded content. Watching lectures, pre-recorded lectures posted on a Coursera, edX, etc. I think this whole notion of live teaching, the fact that you can teach live on a platform and students are listening in real time and being able to ask questions, definitely is a much improved version over a recorded lecture, right? It may not be as good as a physical lecture, but it's fairly good. In some ways, it's actually even better than a physical lecture. People can be sitting in different places. Teacher can be at the comfort of home. You can really use this technology very well. You can record lectures very easily. You can easily put people in, divide them into rooms, etc. Some ways it's working well. So anyway, I think the point I'm making is I think live teaching is here to stay. I think every institution will adapt it in different ways, even after the world opens up fully. Some institutions may become 50-50, some may say 70-30, whatever. But I think live teaching is here to stay. Teachers have adapted, students have got used to learning this way. So I think that's a whole big shift. And now, whether we totally move down to live teaching, I don't think at least that's going to happen. I think the second is the world is also asking this question, what can you do better in classrooms and what can you do better in live, right? So I think every teacher, so I think there is greater challenge on really pedagogy, on innovation at that end. How can teachers transform their teaching? I think every teacher will now need to ask this question, what can I teach better on Zoom? And for what should I call students? Should I call them more for projects, for experiential learning, to divide them into groups, collaborative learning? So I think those are the questions teachers will need to ask, and a lot of innovation is going to happen there. High quality content is really going to play out extremely well. Can you learn basic principles of calculus, algebra in pre-recorded small videos of 5-7 minutes? And can the classroom become more a space for discussion, project work? So I think high quality content is here to stay. I think platforms which can work very well in low bandwidth, those technologies will develop. I was speaking to somebody at IIT Kanpur, and he's working a lot around how do you really get learning to the remotest corner. So I think those technologies will come into play. So all in all, I think it's an exciting, there's a lot of room for innovation. I don't think the world is either going to be totally digital or totally physical. I think the play is going to be somewhere in the middle. So the opportunity for great technologies, the opportunity for great content is going to be there. To your last question, and I'll just take half a minute more on finances. I think all our institutions were designed to really be in a physical world. So being fully digital in some sense doesn't help, right? You can't charge students hostel fee when students are not in the hostel, right? You may have to give some discount on tuition. So definitely finances are bleeding. I think different institutions are dealing with it in different manner. I do feel when we open fully, institutions will adjust and probably come back. I don't see this to be a long-term challenge. I think this is more a short-term challenge. Eventually, I think technology will be a big equalizer. I think it will promote access, access to education will get democratized. More people in remote areas will get access to high quality education. Institutions will come up with hybrid degrees, right? Can you study 2 months at home and come 1 week? Can you have weekday at home, weekend? The whole space of continuous learning, executive education will open up tremendously. People can work and study and then come on the weekends to the university. I think there's great opportunity for continuous learning. And for us at Ashoka, one of the learnings of the pandemic was that we did open up, we started this program called Beyond the Classroom, which was really for people who were, we had some of our best faculty teaching online. These courses were open to everyone, to people who were working, to elders, and we found reasonable success there. So I think that's a whole new world which sort of opened up. So I think those are some of my thoughts. I don't think anybody has a clear answer. We are all sort of adapting. We're all dealing with the challenge. But yes, the next few years are years of innovation. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Gupta. Yes, I mean, those excellent thoughts on innovation, some of which has begun, and a lot more will happen in due course of time. That certainly is a very nice segue for me to now move to Dr. Shalini Gupta. And I would like to know from you, Dr. Gupta, your thoughts on what Mr. Gupta said, that faculty need to rethink their pedagogy. They need to therefore develop new competencies. They need to think about flipped classroom possibly, because students who are coming into classroom, they would possibly get the generic information anyway. So what is it that the faculty, the staff need to do differently? And at the same time, what should the students be doing differently? What kind of skill sets they need to have right from the time that they're going into school, so that in this context of digital learning, or other digital era, where there will be both the physical and the digital spaces to learn, what kind of skill sets they need to have to adapt. And lastly, also the education leaders, academic leaders like yourselves, how do you think, what kind of new competencies leaders in the academic institutions also need to acquire? Over to you, Dr. Gupta, for your views.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Muma. In fact, when we talk about leaders, faculty, or students, I find, first of all, it is the mindset, because we all know that we started this journey this year only, and people, all the stakeholders, they were not ready for this journey. So in the last 8 months, everybody is trying to cope up with the things, start with the things, or they are already started with the things, and they are trying to move further. So when we talk about the faculty, the difficulty what I feel is that the faculty, younger faculty, they are better able to adapt to the technological changes because of their maybe their abilities, that kind of technological abilities, they are already in the virtual worlds. But when it comes to the mature or further faculty professors, they need technical assistance, and they find it little difficult. This is the actual problem we are facing here, maybe in this part of our country, right? Then they are not able to take the online classes the way it has to be. And the second part, I feel that faculty, they are changing their mindset, but again, they feel that being in the classroom, giving them the mentoring, talking to the students, and one-to-one personal interaction, they feel that is required. Even students, they want to come back, as we have discussed just that students, they want to come back to their hostels. They want to enjoy their campus life, because finally, regular teaching is important, because it is not important to get the concepts, but the days, college days or the university days or even school days, they're very important for the general skill sets, life skill sets or behavioral skill sets, adaptability, adaptability, and all those things, communication and all. So people are missing this. And with the UGC's norms that you can, in the phases, you can go ahead with the things. We could see that the students from the far off places, even they wanted to come back to the campus and they are enjoying. So the skill sets, when we talk about, the whole point is to keep the students engaged. In the classrooms, our black and board teacher or the blended learning part was already there, where people had started with the SWAM or MOOCs and all those stuff. But the skill set that the total 100% students are engaged through the online classes, faculty, they lack the skill sets. The platforms, though Zoom, Google Meet and all that stuff is available, but again, internet bandwidth or 2G, 3G services and all that stuff, that is, it is a real problem. So we are not able to connect to the remotest of the student. Secondly, though we went for the proctored examination, but maybe everybody is facing the same challenges. That was success, but not 100%. We would say that that was some percent, 60, 70% success. So that maybe skill set from the examination side and skill set of taking the examination from the student side, it is right now in the midway. We would say that it is not infancy, but I would say that digital transformation is on, but people on an average, when discussed also, they are in the emerging stages. Then comes the designing the online curricula, because we have to engage the students completely through online. So our faculty has to get the skill set that everybody is engaged. There has to be quizzes, there has to be discussion, there has to be PPT, there has to be some YouTube video, or there has to be a combination of many things. One person really cannot keep on saying and other cannot absorb the certain things. So this needs time. Faculty, they need to use the technology in a way, because the faculty is supposed to be blackboard or maybe LCD PPT level faculty, and going to that level completely, they need to improve. And things are on. For example, when you are in front of camera, people are hesitant. So that is another difficulty, that in the class, they can take the class, but in front of camera, they find it difficult because somebody is observing and everybody is observing. So these are the skill issues or the mindset issues we have in general. But yes, there's no doubt that digital transformation is taking place and everybody is trying to do their bit, students, stakeholders, even academic leaders. For example, when we talk about leaders, academic leaders, maybe deans, directors, or vice chancellors, or any level. When it comes to the technology investments, there is one part. Another thing, since students are not coming, financials are difficult nowadays. So financial things are there, little problem because of the investments, because of smart boards are there. How many smart boards you can have in a university where you have maybe hundreds of the classrooms? So how every teacher can record their lectures? You need to have the media capturing rooms, or the e-content is to be ready. So all these things again, it's taking time, and director, everybody has to improve, So
Yeah,
I
Dr.
feel
Gupta.
that.
Yeah, very nice. I think you covered the entire spectrum, and you were talking about how do we really make the faculty feel comfortable in front of the camera. And I'm remembered about a very interesting incident that I experienced when I was uh, when I was running Z Education, and we were creating a whole lot of content. And I'm talking about 15 years back or so, when we needed to put faculty in front of camera, not like the mobile phones of today. And those days, you had these heavy duty cameras, which almost looked like film shoot cameras. And
Yeah.
therefore, that itself created quite a bit of nervousness. And there was this very seasoned, excellent faculty in one of the management subjects. Um, he simply failed the, you can say, the camera test. And
Yeah.
we had to come up with a plan where we needed to use his body of experience, but have someone else was very camera friendly, to be able to articulate. So this sort of a storytelling, this sort of a curation of the content,
Yeah,
this sort of a format of what is really going to work, and equip our faculty with that sort of a comfort and storytelling and presentation skills, which are not necessarily that important in a classroom environment, have become suddenly very important. So yes, that's where innovation is extremely important. And we at GTT Foundation, therefore, have actually decided to identify some of these innovative pedagogies and innovative technologies that universities like yourselves have been successful with. And we are asking you to share those instances so we can recognize and reward, and we will share that information with all of you, and we would encourage all the faculty to participate in this.
yeah.
So when we are talking about use of all of this technology, moving over to you, Mr. Sanjay Padode, we are talking about a whole lot of investment. We are talking about suddenly, not only content, but also data security, which we thought is something that the government has to worry about, or we thought, only large organizations have to worry about. But that has now become very important even for the university. We have legacy systems, like somebody else mentioned. We have continued to have homegrown homegrown solutions. We have some pre-systems which have come in from different maybe technology companies, and we have bought some of the systems. So now we need to integrate all of these to deliver this superior customer student experience we're talking about. So all of this would mean that we need to take a step back and also look at investing in a roadmap which is going to deliver all the results that you're looking for. So the question to you, Mr. Padode, is how are institutions looking at such investments? What are the key parameters that you would keep in mind when you have to take a call on where do I need to invest in terms of my priorities for my institution to remain in the forefront of this digital transformation journey? Over to you, Mr. Padode.
Thank you, Uma. Thanks a lot. First of all, let me just step back a little bit before I get to that question. The pandemic, incidentally, is not over. We are going through the pandemic. So, considering that we are in the pandemic, I would like to actually talk about the fact that all the technologies that you're mentioning, whether it's Zoom, whether it's Teams, whether it's, whatever we have been using, whether Blue Jeans or name it, all these technologies have been in existence far before the pandemic actually happened. The challenge was not that the technology was born because of the pandemic. It was forced down into the throats of various institutions. So we lived in a paradigm of education which said timetabling has to happen in a certain fashion, teaching and learning has to happen in a certain way, and we became very used to it and comfortable with that. The pandemic came as a disruptive shock, and we were forced to adopt technology. So what really happened in this, coming from IT background, I think we are trying to fit the old into the new. I think that's not the way to do it. It has to re-architect the entire way you look at education. So fortunately for us, in Jagdish Seth School of Management, earlier known as IFIM Business School, I'll just read out certain numbers that we went through. So we delivered 2,743 online classes. We delivered 171 online exams. We did about 280 collaborative super specialized sessions with universities like University of Virginia, Darden, ESCP Europe, UT Austin. We did some 46 guest lectures, some 23 internship Viva OCs, grouped. And during the pandemic, we were very fortunate that we were able to deliver 34 capstone projects, 292 internship projects, about 7 research papers, out of which 3 came in A category. We did about 4 faculty development programs. We had 100% placement. In fact, we just closed our placement as of yesterday with all students being placed in the pandemic without starting a class. So effectively, why we were able to do it is not that I want to talk, but share my real experience, is that 4 years ago, we invested continuously in terms of changing the processes within the system. We never knew pandemic is coming. We didn't have any insider information from Wuhan telling it's going to happen. But it was just that intuitively we wanted to leverage on the flexibilities that technology offered. So one such flexibility that we really, exploited during the pandemic was the ability to reach out to faculty all over the world for delivering lectures to our students. And we have been practicing this over the last 3 to 4 years. And with the pandemic, it actually broke the monotony of listening to the same faculty when I could engage with faculty from different institutions, bring in different experiences. When I could bring in guest lectures from any part of the world, it made life very easy for us to draw in the corporate into the class, because corporate was sitting at home. And they had no meetings, they were not flying, they were not traveling. So much of their time was conserved that we were able to get a lot of their share into the system. And what that did to the overall ecosystem is that the corporate became well connected with us. So it's not just one-time impact, it's about engagement. Now the corporate is coming on their own and saying, I really enjoyed it, can I do it again? So that became a real large win. And where did we lose? We definitely lost in the peer learning. So like Dr. Shalini Gupta rightly said, students were missing the campus, whole lot of things. But we tried to compensate it by creating activities outside classroom. So we engaged with NGOs to do some social immersion projects. We engaged with corporates to do some internship projects. So it was like internship from home. It was like social immersion from home. Everywhere, the FH got added towards the end. And that's what we did. But what enabled us to do all of this was re-architecting the entire system. So we had invested into a platform called Impartus, which was delivered by a startup company 4 years ago for live lecture capturing. And whatever was being taught in class was already being recorded and posted directly into the LMS. Fortunately, Impartus enabled it to deliver live. So nothing changed, The faculty came to classroom with no student, delivered the class, and it was going into the LMS as well as being delivered to them live. So that worked for us. In the meanwhile, because there were a lot of faculty sitting at home who could not come to class, we had to enable Zoom. So we did a little bit of technology engineering to bring Zoom also onto the platform. So today we have a system where our student information system, our timetabling system, our LMS, and the electronic delivery system, plus the academic portfolio management system, and the Facebook at Work, which is our social media for students, that system has got all integrated into one single sign-on platform. So it's become like a virtual campus, which got developed over a period of time. We have got other systems that are connecting to corporates. So one has to step back and re-architect your entire curriculum, your overall student experiences that you want to deliver, and then fit the faculty. So the best analogy I can give you to understand that, if you go back some 40, 50 years, okay, there was a point of time when playback singing was not possible in movies, right? So the actors, so we had famous actors and actresses like Suraya, who would be a great singer, would be a great actor, would be great in everything. So one person had to do everything. Analogous to our faculty today in class, he has to be a great histrionics master, he has to be a master of knowledge, he has to direct the classroom very well, he has to plan his assessments very well. So he's all in one today. But what happened when playback singing came in? The requirement of being a singer to be an actor went away. And an entire ecosystem started forming. So there were people who were great at creating offline content. There were people who were great at histrionics who could deliver content. And there were people who could direct this whole thing in today's world called instructional designers who could put this all together for delivery. I think that adoption is required, wherein we break away from the mold of expecting a teacher to do everything. It's impossible for the teacher to be a master of technology, master of the program that he delivers, master of the subject, create the knowledge and deliver. You have to bring in expertise from outside who are specialists in each one of these areas and bring it in. I think the technology more or less is available. The investment more is into architecting the processes of how to leverage technology and make it effective.
Thank you, Mr. Padode. So what you're saying is there is a lot of technology out there. It's commonly available, but it's the ability, the innovation to uncommonly put it together, which is really going to make a difference. Now, in this context, what is also important is one of the participants here, Dr. Shyamala Subramaniam, she is asking this question which I think is very pertinent. And I'm going to ask that question to you, Mr. Sapra, that yes, there are going to be islands of experience, islands of innovation, islands of excellence, like Mr. Padode spoke about, like Mr. Gupta spoke about, or what Dr. Shalini Gupta is trying to do. Now, is there a method in this whole ecosystem where we can get the higher educational institutions to come together and have some kind of give and take of these technologies and these experiences out of technologies, particularly the innovation that is happening in the technologies? Because like it was mentioned, by Mr. Padode, that they're working with a startup. So there are a number of startups out there. There are a number of new ideas that institutions are able to come up with. Can these all be consolidated and made available so that this could be shared amongst institutions at a significantly lower cost? And at the same time, we grow the innovation ecosystem. Over to you, Suraj, for your views on this. How do we build an ecosystem? How do we facilitate this innovation to be happening around academic institutions to facilitate more technology to be absorbed and adopted with ease?
Great. Thank you so much, Dr. Ganesh, for pointing the question to me. And at the outset, I would say that the advantage of being the guest at the panel is that you get to speak at last, and by that time, a lot of things have already been spoken. So I'm just thinking that how and what different I can contribute to the panel. But I think if I'm repetitive, I'm going to get that excuse, because 3 out of the 4 co-panelists that we have here, we are proud partners with them. So we work very closely with Vineet Gupta sir's team at Plaksha University. We work very closely with Sanjay sir's team at IFIM and Vijaybhoomi, and we also work with Dr. Shrihari's team at SPSU. And I'm very hopeful that we get to work with Dr. Shalini Gupta's team eventually. So, Dr. Ganesh, we are a technology company and not an educational institution. However, we work very, very closely only with the educational institution. So I'm going to share my perspective in that direction. So as an organization at No Paper Forms, we see the working of an educational institution distributed in 3 segments, 3 broad segments. So one is input management, which is the management of admissions and involves marketing and outreach and selection process. The second is the student lifecycle management. That means once the student is inside of the university, it involves the academics, career building, and allied operations that all the panelists just talked about. And third is the output, which is the management of placements and alumni network. So at No Paper Forms, currently we are solving the problem of input management because we believe the stakes are really high there. And also considering that if the input is improved, then the output is also better. Now, as far as the pandemic is concerned, it had a significant impact on all these 3 segments that I just talked about, especially the institutions who were laggards in adoption of technology suffered the most. Now, that is the negative side of it. However, we realize that this pandemic has also pushed all of us to be agile more than ever. You also talked about agility, you talked about innovation. So we believe that we are more agile than ever. So I'm going to share that what we learned as an organization and how did we co-create value for the ecosystem. That's a question. Now, technology was the only way out during these times, and every institution fast-paced their decisions to leverage the same. So because this trend and we as an organization, I believe, were benefited the most as we could onboard close to 100 institutions, and we could sell our services to them in just 3 months, vis-a-vis 300 institutions that we had acquired over the past 3 years. But it was a huge accountability, because we understand that subscription to technology is useless until it's adopted and consumed properly. So that's what I think Sanjay sir was also indicating, right? There is a lot of technology which is available, but adoption to technology in a meaningful manner is what is going to create a lot of difference. Lockdown was called on 25th March, and it was just the onset of the admission season. All of us working from homes, and it was about it was like changing the engines of the plane while it was already flying. And everybody during these times was thinking that every student of the world is now being on internet, exploring institutions digitally. However, for the initial 3 months, the admissions related search volumes on Google were down by 40%. It was a surprise after surprise. But what did really happen? All of these challenges became a stimulus for companies like ours and institutions like yours to solve for our customers and solve for our students. For instance, in the last presentation, I was seeing Saurabh Kulkarni from, I think FMA Digital showed that 76% of students relied on official website of the university to consume information. Thus, to maximize the traffic to inquiry submission from whatever search volumes were there, we thought of improving content discovery and engagement for students on universities' websites. Thus, we launched an AI-driven education chatbot, which was, which is popularly known as NIA, and it became the industry leader in no time. We never earlier thought, earlier in the pandemic, that we are working with 400 institutions, and the insights around which we may augment our chatbot. No chatbot in the world may do, right?
So Suraj, in the interest of time, since we have committed, we'll be wrapping up by 6:15. Can you just please wrap up in half a minute so that we have an opportunity to go around and ask everybody a question each?
Yeah, half a minute I'm going to take. So, similarly, there are many such things which we could innovate, all because of the needs around the pandemic, which pushed us beyond the fence, and we could co-create for all our partners and the ecosystem. So I believe, pandemic did some good. It helped us in many ways to realize our potential and find out much efficient alternate ways to execute things.
Thank you so much, Suraj, for that, for wonderfully painting how pandemic has actually enabled organizations like yourselves to bring about this dramatic impact for the students and for the universities. So my last round of questions as I go around and ask everybody is basically to request you to tell me in one sentence, what do you think is going to be that big change you think is going to come about in the days to come in terms of how your students, who are your primary stakeholders, what is it that one big change or shift that is going to happen with the way they are going to be expecting from you the service that you will be providing from academic institutions? See, we work for the last 10 or 12 years. We have been working with more than 5,000 institutions across the country. And one thing that we have learned from this process of partnering with 5,000 institutions is that they're all looking at students who are coming in, how do we make them employable as one big ask that the students have, that the institutions have, and that's how we have been able to support them. But what do you think in the days to come? Would that continue? Employability and looking at their own career, is that going to continue to remain the big ask from the students? Or is there going to be a different ask, particularly in the context of digital intervention? Let me start with Dr. Shrihari. It's already 6:15. So I'm going to ask each one of you to take just 1 minute so that we can wrap up in the next 3-4 minutes. Just 1 minute, please. Each one.
Yeah, employability is going to remain a concern, particularly in during the pandemic era. So many people have lost their employment. So employability and employability expectation from the university is going to remain the most important thing. But what is likely to happen is the big thing, if you are asking me to point out as a change, is students will want to learn when they want, what they want, and where they want and how they want. In fact, there is going to be a lot of mobility and as well as the freedom which the students will expect. UGC is already talking about examinations on demand. I think that is the big thing.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Dr. Shrihari. Dr. Shalini Gupta, what is your view?
Yeah, I feel that it is the accessibility, freedom, and affordability too. That will be the future for the students. Though I always feel that it has to be the hybrid learning, blended learning, and campus feel is to be there. And this technology or this pandemic, it is preparing the students for the next years to come when they will be able to cope up with the digital challenges and learn better with the hybrid teaching. So I feel accessibility and affordability, that is the in thing.
Accessibility and affordability. Thank you very much, Dr. Gupta. Mr. Padode, what are your thoughts?
Just like the pandemic has forced technology into education, I think the pandemic has forced work from home as a new way of working. And I think employability will always be one of the most important criteria, but the parameters defining employability would change. The education system would have to adapt to the new way of learning and adapt to the requirements of the gig economy. We'll have to look at, we cannot, I mean, a lot of jobs are going to change. I think what we were teaching in the past may become redundant, but there would be new opportunities and new jobs created where we'll have to work, create new curriculums, new pedagogies to make it happen.
Okay, great. New pedagogies and new curriculum, new opportunities, gig economy, fantastic. Over to you, Suraj, for your last one.
Yeah, so I believe that students would start valuing experiential learning and the value of being in the classrooms, very, very soon, because there's a lot of.
So you mean to say bunking will no longer be something that the students will want to do? Remaining in the class is what they are going to be looking forward to.
Yeah, so the way that we used to value our classrooms and teachers, they're going to value it. And I believe for educational institutions and all those companies, etc., who have not subscribed to any technology, they will have to do that. And more than subscription, they will have to focus on taking the accountability of adopting technology in a very, very meaningful way.
Thank you very much. I would like to end this session by conveying my sincere thanks to all the panelists for their really wonderful and meaningful insights. And I wish we had more time to delve deeper. But I'm sure there'll be another opportunity some other day. Over to you, Chandan, for your closing comments. Thank you all.
Thank you very much, Uma. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Uma ma'am. A lovely moderation, in fact, done by you in such a short time. The justice which you have done to this panel session is really commendable, ma'am. And my apologies, the session was getting late. It was so whenever we have some ministers or big people coming over here, a bit of opportunities also come. There are very good insights and thoughts which was been shared since the inaugural session, and since this was the closing day and the valedictory event, everybody was taking its own sweet time and was definitely, contributing its 1 minute of his memory also, or her memory also, which they have been with us since last 3 months now. And let me thanks again to the team of Performs and UniApply who have been supporting this mission since last 3 months. We have been organizing 30 sessions like this, ma'am. And we were proud to have that. Crossed 10,000 plus registrations plus attendees. We were able to engage more than 250 educational institutions pan-India, 150 school and preschool education pan-India. So this platform gave an opportunity to collaborate with the preschool lobby, the school lobby, and the higher education lobby, and giving an opportunity of even more networking and collaboration between the corporate segment, the academia segment, and bringing the government people and the regulatory bodies. So they were very kind enough in showing a very good gesture to hear out the thoughts of what industry leaders have been facing and how they can help it out. When the situation of pandemic was coming, and equally when the execution or implementation of new education policy has to be, rolled off, there is a lot of opportunities and challenges again. But again, like edu leaders like you, thought leaders like you, and the way you are leading your institutions and our organization from front in the support with your technical and non-technical staff, the students and the parent community, hats off to the commendable efforts done by every leader present over here. So thank you so much for joining us, everybody. Thank you so much, Uma ma'am, for coming over here. Your interaction with us was for the first time, but let me tell you that I will be happy to have you moderating these sessions in many of the events which will be coming. And before this, I would also like to thank Sanjay Padode sir. Thank you so much for joining in over here. And Vineet Gupta ji has to leave early. So thank you so much, Vineet sir, Shrihari sir, Dr. Shalini ma'am, and Surat Sapra over here. So this slide shows you the announcement of our next project, which is again a 3 months project. And we are announcing by the brand name of National Education Conclave. We'll be running through January 2020 to March 2020. Under this, 4 other events which we have just announced, and we'll be happy to tell you that 21st January is the first event we'll be coming up with Vice-Chancellor's Conclave, and we'll be talking more on artificial intelligence in universities. The second event is on 29th of January, ASMA National Education Conclave, where we'll be, hosting an event named as India's Top 30 Marketeers Summit. We'll be inviting the top market leaders from across the universities. 19th February will be ASMA National Education Conclave, featuring India's top 30 edtech companies of India. And 19th March will be ASMA National Education 2021, featuring top 40 under 40 in education in India. So with this, I'm very hopeful that people are keeping safe, and we are very positive, and we are very hopeful that this disruptive situation will end over soon, and we'll be meeting more physically than virtually, exchanging cards, shaking hands, explaining and taking the liberty and opportunity of the stalls and the events and the stage and that glamorous platform, which we are very hopeful. And thank you so much for joining us over here. Please follow the social media handles of ASMA for keeping you updated on our upcoming
Chandan,
event.
I'm sorry to cut you, but I'll just take a minute to thank Dr. Ganesh for such
Please.
it was very, very energetic and passionate. Ma'am, thank you so much. Thank you so much, Sanjay sir, for all the insights. I thoroughly enjoyed being a panelist. And Dr. Shalini Gupta, thank you so much for your contribution. Hope to see you, ma'am, very, very soon. I'll touch base with you. Thank you so much, and Jai Hind.